Hello, hello. I realize something is wrong here. There we go. Hello, David Snowpick here from Snowpick Games. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, Erico Montero and Square Peg. How are you folks doing? We got pretty good characters today. Erico may be invisible given that their character's primarily green. Oh, you guys can't see it. There we go. Jeez. I messed all the settings up today. Are you showing up? You're kind of semi-translucent, Erico, because you are so very, very green. But you look awesome. A orc with a braid in a green dress. We've got Square Peg rocking an orc with the spiky helmet, looking good. Ooh, and a sweet red stash. I kind of look like me, really. I mean, I guess I don't dress quite that imposingly, but... And then, Ruben, welcome to the stream. How have you folks been? How are your projects going? What have you been up to in the last week? I actually haven't had that much going on, honestly, in the last week. I've been working on GDExtension stuff, been working normal work. I've been playing No Man's Sky a lot. Does anyone else play No Man's Sky? Am I like the only one? I love that game so much. I've been playing it in VR. Actually, I think since I started playing it in VR, I haven't played it not in VR. I think according to Steam, I've played some 60 hours in VR. But yeah, otherwise, not much else going on. Doing games too. I mean, I have not been working on making any game projects presently. I've just been working on Godot itself. I had at the beginning of the year, I started this project where I wanted to make one game prototype every month because I do have this tendency to get stuck just doing game programming, but not actually making games, which is very frustrating. And I did follow through on it like January, February, March, April, or did I do April? I might have done April. And then lost it on May. No, I think I lost it on April too, but it was just too hard to keep up with. And I felt like I didn't get to invest as much time into each prototype as I wanted. Like 1 month is kind of too short almost, like at least with the amount of time that I have to invest. So I've kind of taken a break from the prototyping project. I think after Godot 4.1 comes out, I will dip back into actually making games, not just like making game engines or programming for games. Just learned some stuff about Cinemachine. What is Cinemachine? I have not, or maybe I've heard the word, but don't know what it is. In any case, I don't know what it is. Hey, Gulliver, welcome to the stream. What kind of character did you get? You are rocking a dress and a very full beard, looking good. Or maybe it's not necessarily a dress. It could be. One of those shirts with the long tail on the back kind of thing. Like if we were going steampunk, you could be a steampunk prince of some kind. Square Peg has been reading up on WebGPU. Yeah, WebGPU. I really hope that WebGPU manages to get its act together. It's such a promising technology. And I guess I haven't looked into it in a little while. Like SquarePeg, you might have more up-to-date information than me. But last time I was looking into it, one of the big problems was that each of the WebGPU implementations used a different shader language. Like there were some ones that used SpearV, so then you could write in GLSL and compile to SpearV. And then there were other ones that used like a custom shader language that's just for WebGPU, and like there might have been even a third option. Anyway, it was like that was one of the main incompatibilities that you kind of had to deal with WebGPU. WebGPU for Chrome came out yesterday, so like it came out of experimental. Hang on, stop the presses. Chrome ships WebGPU. So I guess April 6th it says. At least on this article, unless they're saying it in advance. After years of development, the Chrome team ships WebGPU, which allows high-performance 3D graphics. Okay, so that is awesome. That is great. I am curious. WGSL, is that their shader language? I just want to see an example. Show me some WGSL. I want to see what it looks like. Is WebGPU enabled? Yeah, okay, I'm using an old... this is actually Brave. This is not Chrome. but I could certainly bust out Chrome and update it. I just wanted to see what some WGSL looked like. And then the MDN documentation. Search for WGSL. Web GPU shader language, WGSL. Ooh, look at this spec. Okay, so this looks sort of GLSL-ish. Embedding, like, it looks like this might be putting the fragment and the vertex shader together in the same file, which if they do, that's amazing. Godot also does that, which I like quite a bit. But yeah, this is not the same as GLSL. It looks similar though. I do like also declaring the locations as like arguments to declaring the inputs and their locations as like arguments to a fragment shader function. That's pretty cool. That's way less mysterious than the way you have to do that in GLSL. Ooh, some more people showed up. Who else we got? Hey, Nana, welcome to the stream. Oh, I guess maybe that's the only person who showed up. Well, welcome in any case. So Cinemachine is some kind of advanced camera system for Unity. Oh, that allows me, and not just me, to make some awesome camera movement cutscenes. Yeah, okay, so I go to a bunch of like game dev events and meetups and things, and most of the people there are Unity people, for obvious reasons. It's the most popular like hobbyist and indie game engine, and I think that's where I heard the word Cinemachine. Cool. Someone should make a port of that to Godot. That would be cool. WebGPU is very, very fast. That is what I'm excited about with WebGPU. I actually, I don't know Vulkan or DirectX 12 or WebGPU or any of these like new rendering APIs. They've okay, maybe if I sat and put the time into it, I'm sure I could figure it out. But they are complicated enough that every time I've looked at them, I've just like noped out of it. Whereas like OpenGL, I can get things done in OpenGL. I've been able to contribute a bit to the OpenGL renderer in Godot because it's like manageable. One of these days, though, I guess I should pick one and like really figure it out. Maybe WebGPU is the one. Maybe that's the one I should figure out what the whole deal is with these modern rendering APIs. But it would be so awesome to have WebGPU with WebXR. As most of you probably know, I'm the maintainer of the WebXR module in Godot. And I mean, at least on like when you're running on the Quest, the WebGPU or WebXR performance isn't great. And it would be really cool if WebGPU could allow us to improve that performance. On the desktop, we're good enough. I think we're good enough. You know, desktop machines tend to be powerful enough that like the added overhead of the browser like isn't that huge of a deal. I mean, certainly still not as fast as a native app would be, but anyway, I am excited for WebGPU to get there. That's really cool that Chrome shipped it with the WGSL. I don't know if they were one of the implementations that originally did Spear V and was like lagging behind the idea that there was going to be this new shader language. But that's really cool. I'm excited. Yeah, so the WebXR people have been working on a binding for WebGPU for at least like 2 years. It was, I think, when I saw the first proposal. But as far as I know, no one's implemented it. So there is a proposal that I don't think has made its way to being a spec. This is the explainer for it. This whole repo is in fact the proposal. But as far as I know, no one's actually implemented it. So that'll be the first thing. Someone has to implement it. Maybe two different browsers, and then we can get it standardized. And here's like the IDL definition for what it adds. It seems pretty straightforward, to be honest. It's basically taking like the WebXR layers API and making WebGPU versions of each of the pieces of that. It appears to have completely bypassed like the original WebXR way of rendering, which you can do with WebGL, where you don't use the layer stuff, which is fine because I think the layer stuff is better anyway. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome. It has so many advantages compared to the built-in camera. Also makes stuff easier. What is this web GPU? So, you know, in the web browser, you can render using the graphics card and WebGL, which is essentially like the web equivalent of OpenGL. WebGPU is kind of like the web equivalent of Vulkan. It's a lower level graphics API in the same way that Vulkan is lower level than OpenGL. Anywho, yeah, so what are we going to be doing today? Last stream, my goal was to work on two things. One was to review this PR that Clayjohn had asked me to review, and we did that. And the other thing I wanted to do was to start experimenting with ways to add support for registering editor plugins in GDExtensions. This is one major thing that I think is missing from GDExtensions in Godot. For example, I maintain SGPhysics2D, which is a deterministic 2D physics engine for Godot. It makes a bunch of new node types for its physics objects, and you're able to get those new node types into Godot through GDExtension, but you can't actually edit some of them because some of them need editor plugins in order to be edited. For example, there is a polygon node, and to be able to place the points to make the polygon, there needs to be an editor plugin in Godot to allow it. Xylon, the maintainer of the voxel module for Godot 3, which he is similar to what I'm doing with SGPhysics2D, trying to port it from a module in Godot 3 to be a GDExtension in Godot 4. He's trying to do that for his voxel module. And he's running into the same problem that in order to edit some of his new voxel resources and nodes, he needs to be able to add editor plugins. So he worked on it for a while. He tried to, and someone at the last stream came up with this, feed two birds with one scone, solving two different problems in the same PR, solving the GDExtension problem, but also solving a related but different problem with Godot add-ons, where presently a Godot add-on can add exactly one editor plugin. And it would really be nice if add-ons could add multiple if they wanted to. So his PR tried to address both problems at once. It was reviewed by the GDExtension team back in December, and they kind of concluded that they like this solution for addressing the add-ons, but not for addressing the GDExtension problem. So the idea was, to remove the GDExtension bits from this PR and then make a new PR that just addressed the GDExtension problem in a different way. Xylon proposes some ideas to do that. I kind of made my own little proposal of some ideas. These two are basically just reformulating things that Xylon had said above. And what I'd like to do on this stream is attempt to implement one of these, to try and add this functionality to GDExtension in Godot 4. Yeah, that's basically it. Nana, I understand how frustrating it is when you need to code game engine instead of making game itself. Actually, I'm in the same situation, so let's make GDExtension usable. I'm willing to contribute. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Lately, we've been trying to kind of reinvigorate GDExtension development. Basically, I think the GDExtension team was still doing meetings and kind of moving things forward back in December, but then since then kind of stalled. And then maybe about a month ago, we started doing GDExtension meetings again and trying to push things forward again. There's a GDExtension meeting tomorrow. It is at, how am I going to look this up while I'm on stream? It is at 6 a.m. my time. Let me translate that to UTC. 6 a.m. CDT in UTC. See, I must have looked that up earlier because Google remembers my search. That is 11 UTC. So if you are interested in contributing, turning up at the meeting might be a good idea. If you join the Godot Rocket Chat in the GDExtension channel, there is the links and everything you need. Anyway, yeah, we're trying to get things moving again. There is 2 weeks now, 2-ish weeks, until the feature freeze for Godot 4.1 happens. So any enhancements, features that we want to get into Godot 4.1 need to be merged within the next 2-ish weeks. Otherwise, they're not getting in 4.1. They will have to wait for 4.2. So this qualifies as a feature. And so if there's any chance of getting this into 4.1, we have to have the PR ready. I don't think I'm going to have a PR for this ready before tomorrow's meeting, but I'm hoping to discuss at least these approaches and stuff at tomorrow's meeting. And hopefully before the freeze gets something in for this. This is probably the most behind of all of the issues that I really want to get into 4.1. There's a whole bunch of others that I think are more important, honestly, but are also more ready. Hopefully, we'll have the meeting tomorrow, go through the list of those, and just approve all of them, and they'll hopefully get merged next week. That would be amazing. But this is one that I'd really like in as well, because there's a whole class of GD extensions that just can't work if you can't register editor plugins. So, Mrs. Squarebang has been enjoying asking questions in the Godot XR meetups meaning the XR meetings. Yeah, the XR meetings have been going quite well. Those also restarted pseudo recently, maybe a couple months ago. So yeah, thanks for participating. All right, so to look at the kind of approaches that I was thinking about trying here, this third one, I don't like it. We're not going to do that. But the first idea is there is this editor interface singleton, which is generally just a way for add-ons, and I don't know if the core engine uses it. The core engine might directly interact with editor node, but anyway, it's an exposed class that you can use from GDScript to interact with the editor. We could add an add editor plugin and remove editor plugin method to this class. And then the GD extension could simply call those methods. The challenge there, and actually the challenge, I think, for all of these, really, is the order that things are initialized. So GD extensions are usually loaded when Godot is first starting up and goes through its initialization cycle. There's several different modes that it goes through. I had the code for that up earlier. Let me find it. Initialize extension. Yeah, so we have these module initialization levels. So the editor initializes up to the core level, up to the servers level, then up to the scenes level, and if we're running in editor mode, up to the editor level. And it basically passes, every time it initializes the modules to those levels, it also initializes the GD extensions to those levels. So we need to have a level at which the editor node is actually initialized, and calling those methods would be safe. And I am not sure that is the case. So we may have to either move where the editor level initialization is passed on to the extensions, or maybe make a new initialization level, which I have a feeling that is likely to be rejected if I do that. So we'll see if we can avoid it. Because GD extensions, well, not because that. So that's one issue. A whole different issue is that GD extensions can also be loaded at any time. I don't know that anyone actually does that in practice, but it's a thing you can do. From GDScript, you can tell it to load a new GD extension. And they can also be unloaded at any time. Again, I don't know that anyone actually does that. For the most part, GD extensions are unloaded when Godot quits, but any solution that we come up with should handle the fact that they are able to be loaded at any time and unloaded at any time, and they need to participate in engine startup and participate in engine shutdown. So all those things need to be satisfied somehow. So I really like this idea, except we have to look into the initialization order thing and figure that problem out. The other idea is when you're using GD extension, all of the classes that you declare that interact with the engine have to be registered in the class DB. So we could conceivably mark editor plugins special in the class DB and then have the editor node, when it's loading all of the built-in editor plugins, would loop over all of the classes in ClassDB that said, hey, I'm an editor plugin, and load those. This also would allow us to remove the editor plugins when the class is being removed from the ClassDB, which would satisfy the unloading at any time or unloading at the end case. And if something starts up in the middle, we could have our special like GDEinterface function that marks the class as an editor plugin in the ClassDB. Say, hey, are we like already initialized? If so, like we'll just add it as an editor plugin right now. And same for like removing the same kind of deal. So these are the two ideas that I think are the best. I was hoping, I mean, it was a vain hope. I posted this only 15 hours ago, but I was kind of hoping someone would like chime in and tell me if they had a preference. But we'll talk about it at the GDExtension meeting tomorrow anyway. I just want to get started on one of these ideas, which will give me a better idea of what's feasible, so I can come to that conversation with just more information. If I try, this option on stream and it turns out to be a total disaster, well, at the GDExtension meeting, I'm just gonna promote this idea. Fasolatido, welcome to the stream. There's a plugin that unloads, reloads another plugin, useful for debugging. Yeah, that's totally. I read the end of your name and not the beginning of your name, Remy. Hey, Remy. Yeah, that is a very useful tool. I've definitely used it when working on Godot add-ons. This is GDExtensions, though. I don't know if that plugin deals with GDExtensions or just add-ons. In any case, that would also be useful. There's a whole other issue with being able to like hot replace GDExtensions, which would be nice. There's issues on Windows. You might be able to do it on Linux. I haven't actually tried. Or at least you'd be able to switch the file. I don't know, but that's a whole other thing. That's not a thing we're going to get into today. That is absolutely, well, most likely a Godot 4.2 thing to figure out. We're probably not going to be able to address anything with the hot reloading in Godot 4.1. I think it's on the agenda to talk about tomorrow, but I don't think we'll be able to get a PR together for it in 2 weeks. I mean, maybe if one of the other GDExtension team members is like really pumped to make that happen and jumps to do the work right away. Anyway, let's start hacking on some stuff. So I was working on this last night, and I'm glad that I was actually. I started getting things ready, and I found a Godot bug that would have totally thrown me off on stream for like an hour if I found it on stream. But I was able to get that squared away. I don't know if you guys are curious about that. It was a PR that was merged yesterday that broke GDExtension loading on Linux, at least without having to change your .gdextension file. And it got merged this morning. Yeah, just a regression. You would put in your .gdextension file a line like this that's Linux debug x86-64 and the name of it, and this regression made it so you would have to change it to Linux BSD. And it took me just forever to figure out that was why my GDExtension wasn't loading. So I'm glad I didn't do that on stream. You guys would have just been laughing at me the whole time. But I did start on this a little bit. Let's make sure I'm on the right branches for everything. Did I make a branch for this? Did I make a branch for this? I did not. Okay, so this one just needs to be on master. And this is the right branch for this one, I think. Let's see what's in here. Okay, just my printf. All right, so let's recompile this stuff in case I messed that up between yesterday and today. That shouldn't take long. Yep, this one didn't need to change anything. This one also didn't need to change anything. Awesome. So what I did so far was I added some print statements to try and get an idea of how initialization works. So this one... Wait, what are these changes? Okay, these ones are expected. What the heck are these changes? these are changes for a different PR. Why are they here? Okay, let's revert this and then recompile just so we're not doing anything weird. Did not match any. Okay, yep, because I'm in the wrong directory. Okay, so this change we're just going to live with for now. I could pull in the latest code and not have to deal with that, but we're just going to leave it. This is the printf I added. So in the initialize callback, I guess we'll say, in the test GDExtension that I'm using, it's printing out its init level every time it gets called. And then over in Godot, I added a print statement to where editor node is loading the built-in editor plugins. And if we run this, which I guess I'll open a terminal to do. Ooh, and I'll make this big so you can actually read it. If we run this, come on, I don't want to type this long. There we go. That should be the one. If we run this, it's loading the editor, so that means it'll initialize. Ooh, oh no, it won't initialize all of the editor. We have to go into an actual project. All right, now it will initialize all the way up to the editor level, and we'll be able to see in the terminal when these different init levels appear to happen. Again, I'm not 100% sure that they are happening at the time that I think they're happening, because like printing from different places could lead to some weird buffering stuff, but it makes me more or less, more certain than uncertain that this init level 3, which is the editor level, is happening too early. So we have, init level 1, init level 2, init level 3. These are all from the GDExtension. And then this is when Godot itself is adding the editor plugins, which is during the constructor for the editor node, which is basically like the entry point, we'll say, for the editor in Godot. And we need to be able to call things on it when it's already initialized. So it seems like it's being initialized too late. And I started a little bit looking around in the code to try and figure out where those two things are happening. Where in main.cpp are we creating the editor node, and where are we actually calling the GDExtension initialization levels to try and figure out if there's something I can see from that code that's the obvious thing to do. But I didn't actually get through that. Hey, Ace-Gyak, welcome to the stream. And Asterion, hey! We are working on adding support to GDExtension to add editor plugins from a GDExtension. That was very circular the way I said that. I'm sorry. But yeah, we're working on adding the ability to add editor plugins from a GDExtension. Let me just take a quick tea break here. Okay, so main.cpp is this super bloated file that it is a long-term goal of the Godot maintainers to break up into smaller bits rather than this big monolithic mess, but it is where we are going to be looking to see when each of these things get initialized. Okay, so this is deinitialize extension. Ooh, I think I actually added some bookmarks. Are they still here? Yeah. Okay, so this is where we are telling all of the GDExtensions, or we're calling the initialization callback on all the GDExtensions for initialize level editor. Assuming this is the right one. I get confused because there's also like test setup stuff in here, but this is, I think, the right one. This looks right. Let me get all the way to the top. Setup 2. Yeah, I think this is the right place. And then here is where the editor node is being created. And I have no idea where these things are in relation to each other because they are about 500 lines apart. So what function is this? I need to figure out how I can make VS Code tell me what function I'm in for these cases where I have like a several hundred line function. Okay, so this is main start. And before, I'm just double checking that I got this right. Okay, that's main start. And this one we saw was main setup 2, right? Yeah, so when the heck do these functions happen in relation to each other? Let's see where main setup 2 is being called. This is the tests. Okay, here's engine initialization. So setup. Oh, let's read this comment because this might actually help us understand things. So engine initialization. Engine initialization consists of several methods that are called by each platform's specific main. To fully understand engine init, one should therefore start from the platform's main and see how it calls into the main class's methods. All right. I think we don't need to do that in this case because whatever platform we get to, we're going to end up here somehow. This seems to take all of the main arguments. The initialization is typically done in 3 steps, with the setup 2 step triggered either automatically by setup or manually in the platform's main. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, maybe we will have to look at the platform mains to see how setup 2 enters the equation. Setup, exec path, argv, second phase, is the main entry point for all platforms responsible for initialization of all low-level singletons and core types, and parsing command line arguments to configure things accordingly. If second phase is true, it will chain into setup 2 default behavior. This is disabled on some platforms, Android, iOS, UWP, which trigger the second step in their own time. I don't know who wrote this, but it sounds like Pedro's voice. In my mind, I'm hearing Pedro. Or actually, I should be able to see who wrote this. I guess Remy wrote it, or at least was the last person to edit it. Anyway, setup 2 main TID override registers high-level servers and singletons, displays the boot splash, and registers higher-level setup types, scene, editor, etc. Start is the last step. That's where command line tools can run, or the main loop can be created eventually, and the project settings put into action. It's also where the editor node is created if relevant. Start does its own argument parsing for a subset of command line arguments described in help. It's a bit messy, but it should be globalized with the setup parsing somehow. Okay, so how did we get here originally? I was searching for setup 2. So setup 2 is called sometime after setup, and what was this one called? Start, I think, yeah. And then when does start get called? We'll call start. Let's ask VS Code to find references, or not setup, to references to start. Go to references. What's going on in chat? Can I ask what the status is on deterministic physics extension for Godot 4? So the status is it can't be completed until GDExtension is long enough that it can actually work as a GDExtension. I did consider at some point making it be a module in Godot 4 as well, like it's a module in Godot 3, but I just really want it to be a GDExtension. I went the other path of just going all in on trying to improve GDExtension to the point that it can actually work. So if we can get everything that is on my list to hopefully maybe get in Godot 4.1 into Godot 4.1, that means sometime after Godot 4.1 is released, it would be possible to actually have a release of SGPhysics 2D for Godot 4. Ricardo says, if the editor initialization level is too early to register plugins, one could also register callbacks somewhere and make it so the editor calls them later. Devs prefer this over adding another initialization level. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could also add like some sort of custom registration method for for editor plugins from GDExtensions, and it could check if we're initialized enough and then directly add the thing, or if we're not, save it and then add it later. It would be so nice to just be able to add a method that can add editor plugins and then call it directly. One of the things I worry about with sort of bespoke GDExtension APIs is that we do want GDExtension code to look like module code. And if we veer like into an area where like, well, this can only happen in GDExtension, or this can only happen in module, although there already are plenty of things that can only happen in a module, so that's not as bad. But like, this is a thing that can only work in a GDExtension. It just bothers me. Not to say that we shouldn't do it that way. That might turn out to be the best way to do it. I just would prefer not if it's possible. Anyway, one thing I was hoping was that maybe we could just move the editor initialization level like a little bit later. But that also might be a no-go if we're trying to make the modules and the GDExtensions have their initialization levels happen at the same time. I don't know. I want to try and go down this path first. We'll see how it goes and then change direction if we need to. All right, so what was I trying to determine? I was trying to determine what calls start. From I know there's ongoing attempt to mount hop reload, so more flexible solution would be less likely to interfere with it. So more flexible. Yeah. I concur, Nana. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what is calling start. And then I got up the references thing, and then I didn't look at it. All right. It's checking 553 files. To preview results, click the search icon in the status bar. That sounds nice. Let's do that. I want to preview I clicked it. Click to preview results. Disappointing. VS Code has lied to me. I clicked it, nothing happened. Let me just search for this again. Okay, editor debug node, singleton start. Yeah, what calls start? So this is the main class. Is that what scene tree descends from? No, this is a different class. Something specific to engine initialization. And it is a static method, so we can search the code for main : start. All right, so it looks like these are called from the platforms. Okay, so let's go look at the platform. The comment told us to look at the platform. I thought we didn't need to look at the platform, but I think the comment was right. We need to look at the platform. So here is Linux. So in Linux land, create the OS, get some data that we're going to pass into setup. Setup runs, and I guess it calls setup 2 automatically, right? That was what we learned over here, that second phase, the default should be okay, if we're not saying anything, the default is true, so that should be calling setup and setup 2 right here, and then start happens. And start is when editor node gets created. Well, how about this? Let's just hack this in here any way we can, and then sort of evaluate how it looks. And if nothing else, I can make a draft PR that will be a place to discuss at the GDExtension meeting. Hey, Adam Scott, welcome to the stream, and Thaddeus Cruz. Isn't GDExtension set to have a modest rewrite to clean up a lot of these nagging concerns? I thought I remembered that at least being proposed in the contributors chat. Interesting. So I have not heard about that. at least from the perspective of the GDExtension team, which I guess I've joined. I didn't fully intend to join the GDExtension team, but I guess I've joined it. We are just going to make some rather large feature additions for 4.1 and not do something as drastic as a rewrite. So the two biggest features are a way to ensure, I guess that would be forward compatibility for anything in the class DB, and then another one, I guess this is more of a rewrite, rewriting the way the GDExtension interface works, the low-level GDExtension interface, so that we can ensure compatibility of those low-level, forward compatibility of those low-level GDExtension interface functions. Everything else is smaller enhancements and improvements, but I don't think there is a big rewrite planned anywhere. In Soviet Russia, you don't join the GDExtension team, the GDExtension team joins you. So true. But yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, Thaddeus Cruz, the window to merge any new features or enhancements that will get into Godot 4.1 is 2 weeks. We have 2 weeks to get anything merged. So I'm really hoping that we can get all of these things merged in the next 2 weeks so that it will be in Godot 4.1. Otherwise, it's all going to have to wait for Godot 4.2, which would suck because making it so that we can actually provide forward compatibility for GDExtensions is a pretty critical thing. And if we're going to say, oh yeah, 4.0, like whatever, that was like the first release, we're not compatible with it, but it's fine because it's just, it's 4.0. But if we're going to do that for 4.0 and 4.1, that's just less of a good look. And it means that people can't seriously invest in making GDExtensions quite yet, which it would be nice if they could. But yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with my my a moment ago plan to just try and throw this in the ugliest way possible, and then evaluate it. Maybe consider looking at what was Ricardo's idea? Oh, his callback idea. That's something else that we could look at. And then also, what was my option number 2 on this PR that I put in the comment? The class DB thing. I don't know why I don't like the class DB thing as much. I mean, the class DB idea does have the advantage of it's not only useful. Well, okay, so both of these have that same advantage. It's not only useful from GDExtensions. Being able to call these methods is from any binding is useful everywhere, including GDScript or C# or whatever. And being able to register something in the class DB as an editor plugin, right off the bat, is also useful, just in the engine in general. And then I'm not favoring this idea because it's very GDExtension specific. But yeah, so let's try option number 1, and then we will try. We'll figure out what we're gonna do after that. So to start this, I think the first thing is we need to add these 2 new methods to editor interface. And I'm assuming we would not want to have the editor plugin class here, so we'll put this in this big list of 4 declarations. Editor plugin. And then we need to find out where we're going to drop this. Editor tools, editor GUI, editor docs, scene playback, base. Sounds like GUI. Maybe. Oh, by is plugin enabled, is plugin set. So by plugins, what do we mean here? Do we mean add-ons, or do we mean we need add-ons? Set add-on plugin enabled, add-on is add-on plugin enabled. Okay. So those would not be editor plugins. Those are add-ons. Why was this function named plugin? That's just confusing. Editor interface set plugin to me would mean you're dealing with editor plugins. But you're not. You're dealing with add-ons. When were those methods added? Yuri added them last month. Are they new, or did he just... how do I get to the thing on GitHub? Will this take me there? No. Changes. Open commit on GitHub. This is the one. Do it. And this is the PR. Okay. My thinking right now is if these were just added and they're not like from a stable release, we can still rename them. And maybe I'll propose that. So this is part of blah, blah, blah that contains only refactoring of editor interface into its own files. Oh, so they may have existed when editor interface was in a previous file. So I think it existed inside of editor node before. Where did it exist? So okay, here's where it's put into its own file. Where was it before? Unless it's new here and he just wrote that comment kind of confusingly. Okay, no, here we go. Here's the editor interface. Here's the old implementation. Which, did it already have a set plugin, get plugin? Yes, it did. How old is that? Actually, here, we can answer this by looking at the docs. Editor interface. So, plugin. No, no. Why was it named is plugin enabled, set plugin enabled? They're add-ons, they're not editor plugins. Okay, that's unfortunate. Well, let's do it anyway. This is so confusing, though. Like, I wouldn't want it to get... this would be a horrible API. Imagine you have an API that includes is plugin enabled and set plugin enabled right next to two other functions named add editor plugin and remove editor plugin. Like, you're going to think that those are related, but they're totally unrelated. They have nothing to do with each other because one addresses add-ons and the other one addresses editor plugins. Okay, well, let's not put them next to each other. Or maybe we should put them next to each other so that in the PR I can complain about it and point right at it. Okay, so add editor plugin, editor plugin. Oh, come on. I can type, right? Plugin and void remove editor plugin. And editor plugins do not have names, I don't think. I think we will have to pass the actual pointer and have it search. Let's go look at editor node, because that is where we're going to be we're just going to be handing this off straight to editor node, which is where editor plugins really are added and removed. Oh, interesting. And it has this other parameter that I don't know what it means. Add editor plugin, remove editor plugins. Go look at how these work. What does this config changed do? If config changed, then we will do enable plugin. So, hang on. In editor interface, what do these functions actually do? Set plugin enabled. What does it actually do? Editor node get single set add-on plugin enabled. Here, this is a well-named method. Add-on plugin. What does this actually do underneath? The two ideas are conflated. Okay, so the assumption is being made that every add-on contains one editor plugin. see how it figures that out. Oh, okay, so for every add-on, it initializes an editor plugin, sets the script to a script from the add-on, and then, yeah, that's the editor plugin. Oh man, this complicates this like way more, at least as far as like making a coherent API. I guess I'm now debating whether pursuing this option makes sense. Because like, if we're imagining the editor interface is providing this interface to scripts in the editor, or wait though, because this is also a problem. This is also a problem that Xylon's issue is also trying to address, the idea that add-ons could have multiple editor plugins rather than this weird each one has exactly one. Let's take a look back at what Xylon was doing there and see if we can come up with an option where we imagine Xylon's patch only includes the add-on stuff. All right, so each add-on name gets a list of plugins. Temporary plugin list. Right, and then it initializes that. Oh, and then here's the GDExtension bit. Yeah, this is just feeling so messy. It's just feeling so messy. What do you guys think? Hey, Gilles! Yeah, sorry I missed your comments below, or earlier, I mean. Yeah, so if you remember from this PR, the GDExtension meeting that you did in December gave him the feedback that the GDExtension team liked this PR for the part addressing add-ons and allowing add-ons to have multiple editor plugins, but didn't like the GDExtension part of it, and thought that there should be a different approach for registering editor plugins from GDExtension. So I'm trying to figure out like what is a good way to address that second half. And we were looking at my first option on this list, and I'm starting to doubt that this option was a good idea. I think I made change gears and try something else. I'm actually starting to like this third one that I didn't really like originally, or maybe not exactly this third one. I'll tell you guys what I'm thinking in a moment. Let me just look at what the comments were. Adam Scott, it means that extensions. Oh, forward compatibility is a new term for me. What does that imply? Yeah, so forward compatibility means that if you make a GDExtension for 4.1, it will work with any future version, like 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, but not the other way around. So if you built a GDExtension for 4.2, you could not load it in Godot 4.1. And there's good reasons for that. I mean, it wouldn't be impossible to make it backwards compatible, just a whole lot harder to the point that we think it's not worth trying. So the compatibility promise that we discussed at the GDExtension meeting and more or less agreed on, at least agreed with everyone who was there, not all members of the GDExtension team were there, was that a GDExtension made for a Godot version should work with all future versions, but not previous versions. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I am now starting to think that we should do something where we have a function that's sort of like add by type. I don't think that we should have it call the normal add by type within the Godot engine, because that has all the limitations that I described here, that it would only work during initialization. There's no way to remove them. It wouldn't work if a GDExtension was loaded later or unloaded before the game was done or the editor was done, because I guess this is all editor stuff. But what if we added a method that was like add by type and made an equivalent remove by type, which Xylon also sort of suggests up here, for calling from GDExtension, but that would use its own mechanism for loading stuff. Does that sound better than this idea? I mean, actually, it's kind of the same idea, just one uses the class DB and the other one doesn't use the class DB. The class DB idea, though, is a little tricky in that, well, no. Okay, what I was going to say is it's tricky in like who controls the lifecycle of the instance. The class DB is not going to be managing editor plugins, but I think there's a way around that. Yeah, basically adding a version number. You're saying, yeah, and actually to explain a little bit why forward compatibility is easier than backward compatibility. One of the challenges with Godot, or with our situation in particular, is that each new version of Godot could add new classes to the class DB, add new methods to existing classes in the class DB. Let's say you built a GDExtension for Godot 4.3 that uses a method that was only added in Godot 4.3. Well, your code that you wrote in C++ knows how to call that method. Bam, it calls it. It can, if Godot 4.3 is loaded, okay, it knows how to deal with that call, whatever. But now you take that same GDExtension and load it in Godot 4.2 that doesn't have that method at all. Like, what should Godot 4.2 do in that case? Nothing? Have an error? So we just kind of decided that at the beginning, the GDExtension is declaring that it works with Godot 4.3 and later, and there's a couple of ways to do that. We can have a sort of fallback within Godot CPP, and then I was also proposing adding like a minimum compatibility thing to the .GDExtension. We'll discuss this at tomorrow's meeting. We'll see what everyone else thinks. But yeah, to just say, I can't do that. We can't load it. Hey, Adrian! Welcome to the stream. Yeah, Gilles, what it would do right now is it would crash. But what should it do? What would we want it to do in an ideal world? All right, so an hour of waffling. What do we do? I think let's do something that adds a new GDExtension interface function. And where's it going to store its data? Should it store its data in the class DB? So let's say it stores its data in the class DB. That's basically just a flag. Well, and the instance has to be stored somewhere. And I don't know that we want class DB to store the instance. Well, okay, so editor node could store the instance in the case where we are in the case where this is happening at engine startup. And I suppose it could hold it later too. Okay, so let's say we mark editor plugins in the class DB as editor plugins. At startup, editor node in its constructor would ask class DB for all the classes that are marked as editor plugins, initialize them. Editor node would need to have its own like map of the extensions, the ones that come from extensions, because they need to be handled a little bit differently. And it would map from the type name to the actual instance. And then we would need a method to remove those, to ask that they're cleaned up for when GDExtensions get unloaded. And we would need a method to add these after editor node has already initialized later. So that's 2 new methods and like a hash map on editor node, and a GDExtension interface function to say that this needs to be marked as an editor plugin in class DB. Unless we can like sneak something into the existing registration, probably not. But let me look at the code for that. So GDExtension interface. And this is the old GDExtension interface. I have a PR that basically like redoes all of this stuff, which we will again discuss at tomorrow's meeting. But the actual functions are the same, just how they are loaded is different. So this would be class DB register extension class. So this gets passed in the library, the class name, the parent class name, and extension funcs. Let's check out this extension funcs structure. Come on, VS Code. You can do this. You can do this. Extension funcs. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. There's a oh, it didn't even go to the right place. We'll just search. Or maybe it's from somewhere else? What the heck? VS Code, you're so useful until you're not. GDExtension, class creation info. Let's copy this, I guess, and paste it into the big search. See what we get. Here we go. It was in the same file. I don't know why VS Code was freaking out. Okay, so we say is abstract, is virtual, get set, blah, blah, blah. Per class user data. Okay, so we could add a new field at the end of the struct. I don't like doing that. It would work though. Well, no, it would sort of work, but not really. We would also need to add a new, yeah, okay, so why, okay. It would sort of work in the sense that a newer GDExtension could create this structure and pass it to something that was expecting the old structure. But as we just talked about, we don't care about that. That's backwards compatibility. We care about forwards compatibility, which would mean that an older version of or GDExtension made for an older version of Godot would only create this much of the structure and then try to pass it to a function that's expecting this much structure, which would totally fail. We would get random data in this field. So instead, what we would need to do to put this into the class DB registration and not like an additional function is we would have to make a new version of this structure, like class creation info 2, and then make a new version of this guy, register extension class, which would also be like register extension class 2, which takes the creation info 2. That's the way to make it forward compatible. Is that better or worse than making a new thing here that says like class DB like mark extension class as editor plugin. That's a horrible name. Like, definitely would have a better name. But that idea would mean we'd first call the normal class.db register extension class, and then afterwards call the new method register, like mark extension class as editor plugin. Which is the less ugly solution? Hey Ruben, welcome back to the stream. We're still waffling on how to approach this problem. I'm a little bit partial to the making a new method that you only call one of. I can see how the implementation would basically work. We'd have the old method call the new method. Hey, Mr. Patrick EXE, how are you doing? We are working on editor plugins for GD extensions. You are correct. So I'm debating which is the less ugly way to extend the GD extension interface to allow us to mark classes as editor plugins. And I guess the advantage of doing this in the class.db, as opposed to something else, is that the class.db exists at the early point of engine initialization that it needs to exist. But we could also like not use class.db. We could also just use like a new thing that we make exist early enough, and then have editor node grab stuff out of there. And that thing could be other methods on editor plugins. Man, I'm coming back now to something that you wrote, Gilles. Like editor plugins register extension class. Because we could do that too. And then we'd not be registering a class. Would we register a class? Would we register an instance? Yeah, the trying to figure out which of the three approaches to implement, and we started down this one, and then for like a bunch of reasons, I don't know, I started to not like it as much, and now I'm trying to figure out the right way to do this. I like doing it in the class.db for a couple of reasons, but it also is a little weird. Well, so it's weird in that I mean, I guess it's fine, but we can only really rely on, we only really need it to be in the class.db for this one part of the problem. So we put it in the class.db and mark it as an editor plugin because that's around early enough that when editor node is doing its constructor and looping through editor plugins to add to itself, it would be able to ask the class.db, hey, what editor plugins do you have registered? Let me register those, or let me initialize those and add them. But if a GD extension is loaded later than engine initialization, which I don't know that anyone does, right? But it's possible. The API allows it. You can at any time create a GD extension resource and call load library on it, and it will load a GD extension when the engine's already started. And in that case, we don't really need to add them to the class.db. Like, we can, it's fine, like it won't hurt anything. But at that point, what we would need to do is directly add them to the editor node because, you know, its constructor is already done, it's already done its thing. we need to say like, okay, now just add this editor plugin. The one thing that is nice about going the way that I was talking about here, where we make a new like register extension class and a new struct, is that we get to actually test out the system that from my other PR that makes it possible to like make like kind of compatibility or to preserve forward compatibility for these extension methods. And we can actually do that, but it kind of sucks that it's just for one Boolean that we don't even really actually need. You know what I mean? Like we could store it somewhere other than the class DB, and it would be perfectly fine to store it elsewhere as well, right? Like Gilles' idea of putting it also in the this editor plugins class. We could store it there, and it would be fine. That would contradict the work with the hot reloading of extensions then? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't contradict it. I don't think it would have any effect on it. We need to handle both cases. We need to make sure we have code in place to handle what happens when we load or unload it when the editor's already running. But I don't think it conflicts with it. It's just more code we need to put in for those cases. Let's try some variation of Gilles' idea. I don't think I want to call it register extension class, because I think if we are going to I was going to say, I think if we're going to have a new thing that we're like directly passing the editor plugin, then maybe the GDExtension should manage the instance. But maybe not. Maybe we pass a class name, and then we just store a list of class names here, and then it'll be editor node that's responsible for initializing those classes and storing them. Such that this is still just like this dumb little storage thing. Because like right now, if you look at the code for that, editor plugin.h, I think it's here. All this is like a static class that stores a list of creation functions. So we would be adding a new list here, which I guess would be what, like a vector of strings? And this would be like extension classes. And then we would have a static void add extension class. And we would just push that guy on there. So extension classes. And then we would have some way to get it. I don't know that there's a downside to just grabbing the whole vector. Like, is there a reason not to let it grab the whole vector? We could make it const vector get extension classes. Because if it's a const vector, it can't hurt anything, I don't think. Ooh, I didn't follow Godot style here. Oh, I gotta make this vector actually have the right type. But the initialization with the hot reloading could happen after the engine is already running, wouldn't it? Or am I missing something? I'm still going to see this was. Yeah, so we would need separate code paths for when a GDExtension is loaded during engine initialization versus when it's loaded later. So this bit here would only be used during engine initialization. And so when you would call, I'm imagining that we would add a GDExtension interface function, which maybe I should wipe out everything I put into this file because it's all junk. Or let me just look at it first to make sure that it's all junk. This is the core extension, GDExtension interface. Yes, that is verified junk. So we would, come on, reload, dude. Reload. Don't save. All right, so we would add a new function here, which would be like void, I don't know what to call it, editor add plugin. And we would pass in, I guess, we want a pointer to a const string. These types are so hard to remember in here. GDExtension const string pointer. This would be class name. And we'd add a remove plugin. And the implementation of add plugin, if we are currently in engine initialization, would add the extension class here. But if we were already done with the engine initialization, if everything was finished, instead it would call directly to editor node and just add the plugin. So I'm thinking here, here we would have two new methods also, which would be add, what would be something like extension editor plugin or editor plugin extension. Add editor plugin extension, which would take our const string and remove editor. Incomplete type is not allowed. What is the incomplete type? Oh, okay. VS Code has regained its sanity and removed that message. And so we would also need something on editor node. Actually, why are these static? This is so weird. Why are these methods static when they are then referring to the singleton, which would basically be the equivalent of this? Couldn't this method just be not static, and instead of saying singleton, say this? Probably some accident of history that this is done this way. Anyway, I'm imagining that the editor plugin itself would manage this list of, I'm sorry, the editor node itself would manage this list of editor plugins that are added from extensions so that we can call it later and remove them. And then we're just dealing with them as type names as opposed to instances for, I guess, two reasons. One, it's just easier if editor node handles this for us. Rather than putting it on the author of the GDExtension or the GDExtension interface to take care of it. And also, that matches the way that this works in modules. So in modules, you add by type. You're just giving the type name, and it's taking care of it, where here we would be giving the class name, which it would look up in the class DB, create the instance, and then pass it in. Oh yeah, we can't say const on a static method. VS Code IntelliSense sometimes takes a long time. The junk has the blue Twitter handle. I missed. I should have been paying more close attention to the chat because I don't get the reference anymore. I waited too long to read it. All right, so I've already started writing the code for this approach. There's significant tet debt on editor node. It needs a significant refactor. I agree. So yeah, the static function might simply be an oversight. Yeah, I'm guessing an accident of history got us there. I know that is it Yuri who's working on refactoring the editor node and editor interface and all that stuff? It was verified junk. Okay. Yeah, I need to pay more attention to the comments. Nyanel, who is not here, is always yelling at me like, "You need to look at the comments more often." But yeah, sorry. Sometimes I have to like ignore the comments on purpose, like honestly, because I'm so distractible. If I'm looking too hard at the comments, I get nothing done. Anyway, sorry about missing that one. Oh yeah, so it is Yuri who's doing it. Acekiak, if you come on, yeah, you're right, Acekiak, because I have like horrible ADD, and I can to do like normal work, I have to like shut down all of the things and just like focus on a thing, and then on stream, I'm like purposely putting up this thing to distract me, putting up these comments and these little dancing characters, which you guys are looking awesome today, by the way. Anyway, I already started implementing this, so let's keep going down this path. I think it's a reasonable path. I guess the question is, do I want to build this PR on top of the old GDExtension interface, or do I want to base this PR on top of my PR that does the new GDExtension interface? And I don't know the answer to that. Let's just do it here because we're already here. And then it also means, I don't know, it shouldn't be too hard to rebase the PR if at the meeting my other one gets approved. So let's keep going here. So let's go into editor node again and finish up the implementation here. Blah, blah, blah. I think too much tea. I'm garbling up my words a little bit. Add editor plugin extension, blah, blah, blah. So let's implement those. Oh, but we need to add the storage for it first. Since it's not truly static, I guess we should probably make them not be static variables. Editor data, add editor plugin, or maybe it should be something on editor data. This editor data struct. Let's go look at that. What's in editor data? The list of editor plugins is here. Which makes me think we should probably put the list of editor plugins extension, or extension editor plugins? Extension editor plugins, Okay, I think it sounds best as oh, and these should be string names and not strings. Yeah, because the class DB is all string names. So then this would be editor plugin. So I'll have to go back and make those be string names. So extension editor plugins. And if they're extension editor plugins, then the function should actually probably be called take me back. Should actually be called, we'll try this way to go back. Add extension editor plugin. Remove extension editor plugin. And these should be string names. All right. And then we'll put these right by the normal methods because we're going to be calling those anyway. So that would be void editor node, add extension editor plugin, const string name. And then here we need to instantiate this class from the class DB. I think the class DB gives us a function for that, right? Instantiate. And we're going to call it with our p class name. This is editor plugin. And we need to do some checks on it first, actually. So this goes here, but we need to ensure that it is actually... Or no, so this will do the check very indirectly. The object cast2 will check that it's really actually an editor plugin, because it will be null if it's not. But it would be nice to have like a better error message. Litstote, welcome to the stream. Rocking a black braid and a white beard. I have to believe that you dye your hair with that kind of look, to have the white beard and then, well, anyway. How are you liking GDExtension overall? Just tuning in. Yeah, so GDExtension, the idea behind it is amazing. I like it so much better than GDNative. The problem at the moment is that there are some pretty big missing features and some pretty critical bugs, but I'm hoping that we will be able to get a lot of the feature enhancements, which are mostly around compatibility, ensuring forward compatibility, merged for Godot 4.1, and as many of the bugs as we can fix also. The challenge right now is that there's basically 2 more weeks left in the merge window to get new features in for 4.1, and so that's why I'm working on this. I'm actually not really using GDExtension on this stream. I am trying to improve GDExtension for the world. But yeah, also Flame Lizard docs. Are you making a list? Yes. Well, I mean, at least I'm making a list of the stuff I care about. I don't know. Flame Lizard, do you have a list too? Do we all have lists? We should merge lists. But yeah, we have a list of things we're going to discuss at the GDExtension meeting tomorrow, which includes a subset of my personal list of things that I want to get into Godot 4.1. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to make some good headway. I'm feeling positive about it, honestly. Okay, so we want to have a nice error message. So let's write some error fail cond message, and our condition will be some stuff with the class DB. Is there a has class? No. Class exists. Class exists. P class. Oh, and I want this to be P class name. Oh, it is P class name. Okay. Class exists. No such editor plugin registered, and we can give it the name. And what do we call for this? It's like UTF-8 pointer, right? Does that look right? There's like a handful of things I always forget when I'm writing engine code, and that is one of them, not UTF-8. And we need to see if the class descends from it's like has parent or is parent class. We don't want direct parent class though. Does this do what we need? Is parent class inheritance length equals inheritance. Okay, so it is recursive. Good. It's not just checking the parent, it's checking all ancestors. So is parent class p class name, and then we need a string name for editor plugin, and then we'll say something like class is not an editor plugin. Something like that. Did I do this right? What did I do wrong? See if VS Code gets happy about that. Class name is no member UTF-8. Do we have to cast it to a string? String name. I think we have to cast it to a to a string. And if that works, then I guess we have to do that here too. I am going to quick search in the engine for other instances of this V format to see how other folks are doing this. So, wait, so they're just passing in ppath with just a string. Okay, so you don't have to do the UTF-8 thing? Maybe not. Maybe I can just pass it in and it will be happy. Ppath, what is ppath here? I need to find somewhere where someone's doing this with a string name. But a string name should cast to a string. P action is a string name. All right, cool. I don't have to do anything. I can just pass it in and it's fine. I really overcomplicated this. P class name. Done and done. Hey, Black Tie, welcome to the stream. Oh, what did I miss? We could talk about already, but I have an idea to work on adding advanced editor properties doc page. Interesting. Also, the visual shader extension side could use something. At least I can base it on my last blog post. I have not seen your last blog post. I will have to check that out. Let's say I'm interested. There are lots of space open for PRs on the GDExtension side. Yes, and hopefully very soon we will be able to start merging some of those PRs shortly as well. We'd better merge your unit test PR soon. We desperately need living tests to convince people. Yeah, also it's on the list for the GDExtension meeting tomorrow. I'm hoping that one will just be a shoe-in. Automated tests are always good. I mean, I guess people could have comments on the implementation, and then, you know, I'll just try to get those handled as quickly as possible so we can get it in. But yeah, I think having automated tests will help us prevent us from constantly regressing on stuff in GDExtension and Godot CPP. I think it'll be really good. And hopefully also make us less fearful to merge things. I think one of the big problems with our development velocity on GDExtension is just that people are really afraid to hit merge. And I think, you know, the tests as they are in my PR are not very extensive, but if we can build that up so that it's pretty comprehensive, like, I think people will be a lot less fearful to hit merge. All right, so now we have the class and we can store it somewhere. I guess that would be on singleton. Are we guarding against singleton existing anywhere, or we just assume it exists? We just assume it exists. Okay. That's kind of sketchy, because like you really could call editor plugin, remove editor plugin at any time because it's static, and singleton might actually not be initialized yet. But I don't know. I guess we'll go with the flow. We'll go with what everyone else is doing here. So editor data, and we need to add something to our hash map, which I also always forget how to do. So this, we called it extension class. Nope, we called it extension. Actually, the fact that there is this extension class get icon on editor data makes me feel better about putting this other extension thing there. Anyway, it was extension editor plugins. And we need to insert. And how does this work again? Can I just call it with the two things? I can just call it with the two things. Let's do it. That's awesome. P class name and plugin. Oh, we also need to ensure that one of these doesn't exist already. So airfail cond message. So singleton editor data extension editor plugins. dot. Why are you failing to autocomplete for me, VS Code? I hate when you do that. Dot. Is there a has? Is has a thing? Why won't you autocomplete? Oh, because I mistyped singleton. There we go. Singleton. Has. Beautiful. Has p class name. Editor plugin already added for class p class name. I need to do the v format. Awesome. And what are you complaining about? Member extension editor plugins declared is inaccessible. Well, that's a problem. How is this one able to access it? Access stuff on there? Or did I just put it in the wrong chunk? Should I have put it in editor data.h? Interesting. I was expecting this was like a dumb data structure, but it actually has like functions and stuff on it. So then, should the code for this really live in editor data? I don't even really know why we have a separate editor data class. I've done not very much stuff in the editor. Gilles, I'm sure you have way more experience with all of these different classes and structures. Hey, Nikki, welcome to the stream. Flame Lizard, I am generally fearful to hit merge. Yeah, I actually, that PR that we were talking about last week, I put my review, and then I think Yuri fixed up some stuff, and I had mentioned at on the last stream that I'm afraid to hit approved on things where I'm on the team that is like the owner of that thing, because then it'll say approved on behalf of, for example, the GDExtension team. But I was like, I feel like this is safe enough, and I actually clicked approved and let it say, approved on behalf of the GDExtension team. I went for it, and it's been merged. So I hope I didn't just let something that shouldn't have gotten in. But I felt fairly safe on that one. Yeah, sorry, Gilles. I didn't have a specific question other than just like vaguely wondering why we have this editor data class rather than this stuff living on editor node, since we seem to just kind of pass things along to editor data. But it's fine. It's fine. I'm just pretty new to or pretty inexperienced, we'll say. I'm pretty inexperienced to working in the editor code in Godot. Okay, so I think we probably should move the code we were just writing from editor node to here, and then we'll just shuttle the data on over. Oh, interesting. So just a way to save space. So we're not like actually passing editor data to something else or something like that. But theoretically, should I misspell? Yeah, I agree. The editor node and its related stuff and main.cpp and probably a couple of other places are just big chunks of code that really should be split up into multiple things. Thanks, Nana. It's very, very kind of you. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to get things going. Yeah, just a way to avoid a 10K file. Okay, so because the data is actually stored here, let's move what we were just doing in editor node over to editor data. And I'll copy it because we still want this function, but it's just going to hand off its work. Or no, it can't do that, can it? Because we need to call this function, these functions. Okay, so how about this? We'll add a function to editor data that doesn't do all of this. It just does this one part right here. That's all it's going to do. And I guess this part, because it's going to need to verify that the thing isn't already there. So maybe we'll need a has function. We'll need an add, remove, and has on editor data for managing the data on this hash map that we just added. But then it's going to just store the data and then hand the editor plugin off to this other function, which is over here on editor node. So editor data void add extension. I could actually copy and paste these. The signature is going to be exactly the same as on editor node.h. Bam, or almost exactly the same because it's not static. And we also need the has extension editor plugin. I think the visual shader editor plugin is also ripe for a refactor. Lots of lines of code. Oh yes, my character looks like Ganon. Let me see. You did get an awesome one. You got an awesome one, Adam Scott. Okay. So let's go implement these. We'll put them near these functions. Oh yeah, and this totally matches how these work as well. So I'm feeling better about putting these in editor data. Ah, Adam Scott is working at GDExtension. I did not catch that. Congrats on the new gig, my friend. Let's find the code we were just writing, and we're going to copy this. And we need to have the editor plugin pointer too. That's a change we need to make on the, or only on this one, only on this one. And then not singleton, that's just this, so it's fine. We do need to account for inserting something that already exists. So I guess we're gonna have to check this twice. Just trying to see what hash map does when you try to do that. I think it does something nasty. Or maybe not. Perhaps it just overwrites it, but that's also not good. Yeah, it just overwrites it. So we don't want that to happen either, because that's a memory leak. So we do need to check that it doesn't exist. We are not going to print a message here, though. Or we were not going to print a bespoke message for the user. We'll let editor node do that. We're just going to do like something along these lines. So error fail cond, I guess. And we'll throw in the same condition that we had over here. And I'm looking at this now. I need to also remove the editor data. That looks like a function. That's some code. And what happens if we try to remove something from a hash map that doesn't exist? Okay, so removing takes 2 steps anyway, so we can do something sane for that. We need to first find it via the hash map iterator. So string name, editor plugin iterator equals extension. Nope, not extension class, extension editor plugins find p class name, and then we can do error fail cond, and that will be if extension editor plugins end equals I, right? That's how we detect that we failed to find something, I think. Just take a peek at this code again. Or wait. Erase? Do we want to call erase? Is erase better for us? Erase. Okay, erase does the things we want. I don't know why I did it that way with remove. Well, I mean, I guess it's fine doing it in 2 steps like that. Well, no, I guess I don't need to worry about efficiency, but okay, so what we'll do, what happens when we erase something that doesn't exist? If not exists, return false. Okay, fine, fine. Let's just call it. We'll put an error message, a nicer error message, 1 level up in editor node. So say erase p class name. Good. And the has, this will just be return extension editor plugins has p class name. Okay. So our boilerplate over here is done. We can go back to editor node, and we will change this to be singleton editor data has extension editor plugin p class name. Okay, and then down here, we'll do singleton editor data add extension editor plugin p class name plugin. Okay, why are you complaining to me? Remember, okay, it was just slow. VS Code was just being slow. All right, so now we've added it to the data. We're good there. Now we just need to call add editor plugin. Plugin. Sweet. So we are going to add its partner, remove. How are we doing on time? Oh, geez! Only 10 more minutes? We are not going to get this to a point where we can test it, I don't think. But I think we can get a bunch of the boilerplate in, and I can finish it up later. Or maybe, should I just stream a little extra long? When is my actual next meeting? Ooh. Okay, so the meeting I usually have on Fridays is later this week. Maybe I can go a little bit longer. I want to get to, I'd like to get something we can test. Checkpoint. Okay, so when we are removing things, we need to make sure it exists. The reverse. So you can say fail if not this. we'll say something like no editor plugin added for class p class name. And I think that's sufficient. I mean, we could verify that the class exists and other stuff, whatever. It's fine. If it's not there, it couldn't have gotten there if it didn't already meet those requirements. So now we need to get it so we can free up its memory. Since we are the one managing its memory, we created it up here with this class DB instantiate. We meaning editor node. We're now living inside of editor node. We are editor node. So that's singleton editor data. We need a get. We need a get. We have an add, a remove, a has. We do not have a get. Get extension. Or we could have the remove clean up the memory for us. I'd rather do it here because then you have the symmetry of seeing these two functions next to each other, and you can see here it instantiates it and here it frees it. Let's add a getter. I like the symmetry. We're gonna stick with that. And it should exist because we already checked has, so we shouldn't have to check it again. It's going to have to check that it exists again. We're going to be checking this twice in a row. Unless there's a hash map thing that'll just return null for us. That might be okay. And then we'll do mem free on the plugin. And then we have to tell it to remove it. Singleton editor data remove extension editor plugin p class name. Okay, so we just have to make that exist, that function exist on editor data. And actually, I'll put this here. That looks better. So add, remove, has, and get. And then we'll implement it. Okay, and I think we have to do what we were doing before with find, unless there is actually a get method here. I'm not in the right place. I want to be in hash map. There is a get. Okay, so what happens? Crash condition. We don't want to crash. Get pointer. I think get pointer is what we want. So we are going to say editor plugin pointer plugin equals extension editor plugins get pointer p class name, and then we will say if plugin equals null pointer, turn null pointer, otherwise we return dereferenced plugin pointer. Is there a more concise way to write that? Or clearer and concise? Because I know we could do a ternary, but that's not, a ternary is not particular. Well, ternary is clear enough. So it'd be if plugin equals null pointer. That seems fine. Jump back to editor node. This all seems good. So, okay, so we now have functions on editor node to register or add extension editor plugins. Now that I'm like looking at this, there isn't anything actually like extension specific to it. This is really like add editor plugin by class name. The only reason we would add it by class name is if it's an extension, because otherwise we can just add it by type in a module, but there's not anything extension specific to this. We'll see if that's important in review. Hey, Jill, thanks for coming. Catch you later. All right, so let's make this do something. We now have our GDExtension interface stuff here, which I put a string pointer. That's not what it should be. It should be string name pointer. So we'll need to implement those over here in GDExtension interface. Sorry for the yawn. I never get enough sleep like every other person on Earth. Well, maybe not every person. There's got to be someone on Earth who gets enough sleep. Someone somewhere. Some mythical leprechaun that we will never catch, but we assume exists. All right, static void GDExtension editor add plugin GDExtension const string name pointer p class name and extension editor remove plugin GDExtension const string name pointer. Okay, so what we want to have happen here is we're going to say if editor is fully initialized, call editor node add extension editor plugin. If not, call editor plugins add, what did we call it? I think we actually wrote this code already, didn't we? Editor plugin add extension class. Editor plugins add extension class. And here, should we make this reversible? The editor plugins, like, should it be possible to remove that? I feel like it shouldn't. I mean, why would you do that? Why would you add a plugin and then remove it before the editor has managed to initialize itself? Say, I mean, I guess for completeness. Yeah, okay, for completeness. For completeness, it's weird to have a remove not actually remove something even if it makes no sense. So then we'll have to add a new method to editor plugins static void remove extension class const. And these need to be string names. String name p class name. And do we have a way to remove by value? Is that erase? Yes, we do. Okay. So that'll loop. It'll be, you know, ON, but that's fine because no one should ever do this. but we have it. We have it so that all of the rational or all of the operations exist, even if one of them is something that no one will ever do. All right, so how do we tell if the editor is initialized? Can we do editor node? Oh, and these have to only be implemented. They have to be no ops if we're not in a tools build. So if def tools enabled, and if, oops, not caps, and if, so we need to say editor node equals editor node, get singleton, and we'll need to include it up here. Include, where do you live, editor node? In the editor directory. Just where a person might expect it. Okay, editor node gets singleton. So we say if editor node exists, because it's its constructor that loads the built-in stuff, which we need to add that code to. If it exists, we do editor node add extension editor plugin p class name. Oh, and we have to make this be a Godot class name. So, ooh, I've been bringed. Thank you, anonymous bringer, for subscribing. I don't keep the Twitch interface open, which is what that sound is from Twitch. So I don't know who it was. Feel free to identify yourself in the comments so I can thank you by name if you wish. It's fine. You can lurk. I don't care. That's cool. I lurk all the time. This needs to be string name. It's a const string name. We'll say class name equals string name. How do we do this? Like this. This is what we want. We'll just copy this code. Whoa, but not 10 times. Okay. I like it with the underscore. I just do. Maybe I should get rid of it because it matches the class, the one right above. Okay, sorry, underscore. You gotta go. I'll change the definition over here too. But all the definitions use the underscore. Grayed out, you are the follower. Thank you so much for coming to the stream. Every time I find your stream, my productivity plummets. Yeah, sorry about that, but thanks for coming and thanks for subscribing. I really appreciate it. All right, so then the other one, if the editor is not initialized, then we'll do editor plugins. Ooh, another bringer. Thank you so much. Just like Mr. Grayed Out or Miss Grayed Out, I guess I shouldn't assume any. The user of unknown existence grayed out. Thanks for subscribing, and thank you, Patrick EXE, for subscribing. Add extension class name. All right. That looks like the code we want. So then we should do basically the same thing down here. And without the underscore. Remove. You better know that I'm either on YouTube or Twitch. Well, thank you. All right. So this code is good. This still will not work during startup because we have one more bit to add over in editor node in the constructor. This is where I put my printf, so we can search for the printf to find it. We need to loop in here. So plugin init callbacks. What are these? Are these plugin and init callbacks? And those are different than these editor plugins. Well, I'm just going to make the assumption that it makes sense for these to happen here. Which I hope is right. And we are going to loop over some const string names. So this would be extension class names in the editor plugins get extension classes. Or not class names, class name. Grayed Out says, I love Godot for the engine it's trying to be, and for the engine it almost is. Yeah, with Godot 4, it's tricky sometimes where it's like the basics, the scaffolding for this really awesome thing is in place, but it's not quite there implementation-wise yet. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Godot 3 is much easier to recommend from a completeness perspective. Of course, it's missing things that people want, which of course were added in Godot 4, but yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, so then here we need to do add extension. I thought it was extension editor plugin. Yep, class name. And did we implement this? I have a feeling we might have started to implement it, but then had to switch over to, or no, we did. Yeah, that's this. All right. So extension class name. I think that's everything. Did we miss anything? We'll need a way from Godot CPP to call it. And that'll take a little bit to build. What I think we should do is we should add a static class just like this one. Just like editor plugins with an add by type function that under the hood calls that GDExtension interface method that we just added. And then we should also add a remove by type, which doesn't exist in the Godot side, in the module side. This is a cool commit that I just happened to hover over. The first commit in Godot. Godot is open source. This code is old. This code right here is old. Time to tear it up a little bit. But we need it in a GDExtension context. And then we would have to call it from our deinitialize, which is fine. That should be fine. In all cases, it should be fine, no matter how initialized Godot. Or well, I guess then we have to worry about deinitializing. Are there multiple states for deinitializing? There's just the one, right? Deinitialize. We also have levels for those. Okay, we might need to think about at what initialization level, when we are deinitializing, it is safe to remove a plugin. I have not looked at what happens during deinitialization at all. But yeah, let's compile this. I think what I'm going to say is, if this compiles, that's probably enough for today's stream. We implemented a thing. We were not able to actually test it, which kind of sucks. It'd be really cool to go from idea to implementation to testing within a single stream. And I do technically have the time because my meeting that I usually go to right after the stream is delayed. That said, I should probably do some actual work. And I only have so much. It's hard to stream for long periods of time, at least for me, as a kind of naturally introverted person. So I think we'll compile it. We'll fix the compile errors, and then we'll probably call it a stream. So probably just a couple of minutes more. And maybe that might be optimistic, depending on how long it takes this thing to compile. There was an error that I saw up here. We can go start addressing that error while it's compiling. Const string name, blah, blah, blah. Warning, loop variable extension name of const string name binds to a temporary constructed to a temporary constructed from type const string. Oh, yeah, okay, that's a valid error. That's a thing we need to fix. When I was still thinking we were doing this with strings, I made this be vector string, but it needs to be vector string name. And these take string names. So that's all good. All right, so that should fix that compile error. Invalid initialization of reference type vector string from string name. You're outdated, man. Get with the program, VS Code. I don't know why VS Code is stuck on this idea. I think the code looks good. We have vector string name, vector string name. Oop, more compile errors. Return extension classes. Okay, yeah, that probably happened while we were still compiling. Defined but not used. GDExtension editor remove plugin. Oh yeah, that's fine. So the bit of code we're missing there, let's add it for completeness sake, is in GDExtension interface CPP. Let's just get rid of you. We need to assign it to the giant struct of doom, which is hopefully going away. And I guess I'll just put it at the end. GDE interface. This would be editor add plugin equals GDExtension editor add plugin. And I feel weird not putting this ampersand in front of it, but apparently it's fine not putting the ampersand there, but I don't like it. It's unsettling. And remove plugin. All right, let's see if that compiles. See how fast we get through here. Hopefully speedier than last time, given that we did change something in editor plugin.h, which I guess is imported in a lot of places, or included in a lot of places. But I think we got it. I think we got it. While this is going, I'm going to work on the commit message. I'll look at the code for a minute here too, just to see if all of this seems right. Yeah, this seems good. I'm going to say, yes, apply all of the fixes. So this would be, what's a good commit message? I think I'm just going to not do a slush branch. This will be the real commit that will end up in the PR eventually. Allow GDExtensions to add editor plugins. That's pretty straightforward. Oh wait, did I already put a commit on here though? I did. I put my debug print in there. All right. Let us quickly rebase this. We are going to squash all of the things. Squash. And we'll reuse the message from here. All right, that is now a single commit that could go in a PR. It's pushed. Let's go see what we got in the build. Linking errors. Editor plugins, extension classes, in read-only section. Extension classes, undefined reference to editor plugins. Extension classes. Oh, we need to initialize it in a compilation unit somewhere. So that is editor plugin.h. We declared this, but it is not initialized, so we need to go in here and initialize it. See if we can find where the other bit is initialized. Down here! So we'll put it right here. This would be vector string name editor plugins extension classes. Okay, that should be sufficient. Let's recompile. This should go very quickly. It should only need to recompile a single class or a single compilation unit. And then link again. And then we are off to the races. Yeah, I think I might actually be able to work on this evening and then get it finished before the GDExtension meeting tomorrow to discuss it. I guess we could discuss it even if it's not finished, but I'd like to be able to test it. So we'll see. We'll see how industrious I am this evening after my kids are asleep, and see if I can get that done. Yep, compiled. We are good. Let's update my branch here. Is pushed. Sweet. Well, thanks again, everyone, for coming to the stream. This was a super fun one. I feel like it was a very productive one as well. We got something done. I mean, even after like the first hour of me just hemming and hawing over how to implement this. In any case, thanks again. I hope everyone has a great weekend. If you want to chat in the meantime, come join the Discord. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.